Today I would like to discuss the major changes in gait across the 4 stages of development. These are early childhood, adulthood, and older adulthood. First, let's take a look at each of the phases of gait. There's initial contact and loading response, mid-stance, terminal stance, pre-swing and initial swing, mid-swing, initial contact, late mid-swing, and terminal swing. Let's begin with early childhood. Balance is a key issue at this young age to be able to stay upright and not fall over. Through all the phases of gait, balance does play a key role, but most important with infants, as they are learning to walk. As you can see in the picture, in early childhood, infants have a wide set base with their feet to obtain maximum balance, as well as having a short stride to limit the amount of time on one foot, as well as keeping their arms high and outstretched to obtain that maximum balance. Common abnormalities with infants will be certain disorders. Autism and Asperger's are two common disorders that will affect the gait phases at this young age. A constraint that may limit or delay infants in walking will be their strength. Infants need to build up the muscle in their legs to be able to support themselves while standing. If they are lacking these muscles, they may walk later than the average infant who begins around 7 months. Next, we have childhood. Children grow and learn the basics of walking and, most important, balance. During childhood, there is a change in two of these phases in gait. The initial contact and loading response, where the foot is beginning to make contact with the ground, and then there is also the mid-stance, where all the weight is on one foot while the other foot begins to extend or swing. During this initial contact or loading response phase, a child will have a more defined stride as opposed to an infant who is staggered back and forth trying to stay upright. During the mid-stance phase, an infant will take the least amount of time possible to balance on one foot, whereas a child with more control can withstand balancing on one foot for a longer period of time as opposed to an infant. One common abnormality at this age would be the tibial torsion. Tibial torsion is the turning of a child's lower leg either inward or outward. Next, we move into adulthood. During adulthood, humans continue to gain muscle, leading into a change in their walk. During the initial contact phase, an adult can take longer strides due to being able to withstand more balance on one foot for a longer period of time than a child. As well as the initial contact phase, there's the terminal phase, changes slightly. The only difference between an adult and a child during this terminal phase is how efficient and quick this phase is performed. An adult will take less time since they have more balance and the strides are longer than a child would at this phase. A common abnormality at this phase, or age, would be arthritis or orthostatic hypotension. Finally, we move into older adult. Bones are more fragile and muscles will begin to break down, causing normal activities such as walking to become a difficult obstacle. Someone in adulthood will differ from an older adult in a few different ways. First would be the mid-stance. The mid-stance will be shorter in older adulthood since it is more difficult to balance. So the adults in older adulthood will have a similar stride and base as an infant trying to walk. Next is the amount of time that it takes an older adult person to perform the gait cycle. It would take someone who is older adult longer to complete the gait cycle of walking than it would for someone who is in adulthood. This is due to lack of muscle and bone deterioration. A constraint during this phase would be the development and lack of muscle in their legs. Without proper muscle, it will be very difficult to stand, let alone walk. Unfortunately, this time will come for all of us. Finally, we have the abnormalities. An abnormality at this phase would be the forward lean. A forward lean occurs with kyphosis and with Parkinson's disease, or disorders with Parkinsonian features associated with dementia. I do apologize for the lack of lighting and how small the screen is. I cannot find a TV that I could get this up on. I will send the presentation with the assignment submission.